Hey everybody, welcome back. We're at our second episode of Lifescapes, and you may be asking yourself, if you're tuning in, where the heck did we come up with Lifescapes? So just to give you a little backstory, we were talking, producer Eric is here with me, and we were just brainstorming a little bit about, we want something that is, again, as mentioned before, PG-13, but that we could really start to, there's so much negativity today, so we really wanted to try to have something where we're lifting each other up, giving ideas, sharing experiences, all those things that go along with life today. So we came up with Lifescapes, and our motto is, kind of goes along, melting snowflakes one at a time. So and that's not meant to be necessarily being negative on anybody. We just want to help kind of get away from everybody crying about everything all the time. So anyway, that is where we came up with Lifescape. So we're glad you're back. This week, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we want to focus on, and we're going to expand, but this is just where we're at right now. And again, we're going to create our Facebook group that you can join and give us that feedback. So we're new and we're open to constructive feedback. Just don't tell us you hate us right off the bat. Just give us a minute. We are sensitive. We might cry. So last week I told you a little bit about me, and I just wanted to share, I'm in the room with producer Eric. Eric and I went to high school together, believe it or not, and he's in a little town right outside of Charlotte, but I come to his studio, and he has got a fully macked out studio here, and it is amazing, tucked away in the woods. So when I first started coming to record with Eric, and my husband was like, "You're going where? To a studio in the woods with who?" But he knows that Eric is a true gentleman in every sense of the word. So we're in good hands with this setup and the sound quality. So and Eric will be coming on from time to time to give us his input on life. So we'll be happy to have him on board. So what do we want to talk about today? So one of the topics I wanted to cover off on in terms of the parenting piece, and we won't always talk about parenting, but Lord, I'm deep in the trenches of that, so you got to cut me a little bit of a break. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is a little topic called helicopter parenting. If you don't know what helicopter parenting is, so what do helicopters do? They hover. They hover over things, right? So that gives you a little sense of what helicopter parenting is like. It's their kids hovering over everything, or the parents hovering over their kids, excuse me. So I just wanted to share a funny story. So when when my oldest daughter was in kindergarten, she got invited over for a play date with a lovely family, but I'd literally never met them. They had wanted me to drop off, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know them. How am I going to just drop off?" So I stuck around for the play date at their house, and they fed me and my youngest child. And I know in the back of their mind, we're like, "Oh my God, why is she staying? Why won't she just go?" So, but now, funny, flash forward 6 years, and I told them the other day when I saw them, I'm like, I'm a little bit better and a little bit more settled at this parenting thing. So I promise I won't stick around when you invite her over again. So anyway, I was a helicopter parent for a minute, but guess what? I woke up. And so my purpose on this earth was to build really tough, kick-ass girls, right? So that is my mission in life, is to create ladies that can conquer the world, right? So in order to do that, I need to take a step back and let them fail at times. I need to take a step back and let them sort through things on their own. And I feel like as society, we are not allowing our kids to do that at times, and we are stepping in and saving them all the time. And that is creating a bunch of sissies. And so what I in terms of this topic, where I feel like we could probably stand a helicopter is not those young years. We can helicopter starting about 13, right? Let's helicopter them so that they're not doing drugs. They're not having hanky-panky. They're not smoking cigarettes and they're not drinking. That's the time you want a helicopter. You want to be all up in they bizwax so that they're not doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So that is my goal. Is I have not helicoptered them, but maybe just a little bit up until now, where my oldest is about to be 12. We're watching the cell phones, y'all. You have got to watch those cell phones. We have her on a non-data plan phone, but you have got to be looking at what is happening on there. Do not be naive to think that they are safe. There are people out there that their sole purpose in life is to get to your child through one of those channels on that phone. So you cannot hand it over with no controls. You have to be looking at it. And kids, if you are listening to this, know that when mom or dad asks to look at your phone, it is not because they're trying to catch you in some trouble, because I don't care if you're talking about so-and-so on your phone. I mean, I do care. I don't want you talking junk about people, but that's just life and that's what you're going to do. But anyway, we have got to protect you from the people that know how to get at you through these devices. So just hand it over and let us see what's happening. And don't think you're smarter than us, because we've been around the block and we know how to find what you've been up to. So that's one of the things I just wanted to say is, like, I don't think helicopter parenting is all bad. I think the timing you've got is bad. I think you need to shift it out about 12 years and then get all up in their business and make sure that you are giving them the right tools to get themselves out of bad situations. You don't want to teach them how to get into bad situations. You want to teach them how to get out. And a lot of that goes along with role playing and collectively showing them how to have a conversation when they're in a situation. We'll have that more on that topic at another time, but we have to just make sure we are staying a step ahead of them. And that is making sure that we are watching and paying attention and ensuring that we know what's going on. So that is my parenting topic of the week. Shift your helicoptering out about 12 years, and then we will really know what's happening. This week in social media, one of the things I wanted to talk about. So last week we talked about social media and the need to validate our life. And last week's takeaway is to be more present and let go of the phone a little bit. And this week we want to talk a little bit about when you do let go of the phone, you have something that's called FOMO. And FOMO is fear of missing out. So what does that mean exactly? There's a couple things. So FOMO is actually, it was identified in 2000 by marketing strategist Dan Herman, and later allegedly coined by Patrick McGinnis, is one of the stronger drivers in social network use. It's that 67% of users feared they would miss something without their social media fix. So that means that FOMO basically it could mean, actually, I feel like FOMO means two things. It means if you lay down your phone, you're going to miss so-and-so blowing up at so-and-so else. You're going to miss seeing what producer Eric had for dinner that night. You're going to miss watching somebody's funny cat video. So FOMO means you're afraid you're going to miss something if you lay that phone down. The other part, I think, of FOMO is we have that feeling when we actually are on our phone and we're seeing what other people do. We're not having the fear of missing out. We're actually missing out then, right? So that's when you pick it up and you go, wait a minute. I was supposed to go out to eat with producer Eric, and now I see he's having this giant steak, and I am actually missing out. The other thing is, I am a grown woman, and I feel a certain way when I see friends of mine doing things without me. And if I wasn't on Facebook, I would never even know it was happening. So that is part 2 of my reason of laying down the phone more, is because I feel like I'm being left out, and it makes me feel like I'm 16 again. And I don't like that feeling, because I got an amazing life around me, and I don't want to feel like I am some kind of loser being left out of something my friends are doing, and it's nothing that I should have even been included in anyway. So anyway, that is part 2 of my lay the dadgum phone down and be more present, and don't care what other people are doing. Just enjoy what I'm doing and enjoy the moment. So anyway, that is one of the things that I just wanted to bring up this week in terms of our social media focus and trying to get our life back a little bit. So with that, I had a funny story, a little bit of a flashback I wanted to say, that I wanted to bring up with everybody. And I'm sure our mamas and daddies that are listening will remember. I found this while I was playing around on that World Wide Web. I found a story about Miss Cleo. So who remembers Miss Cleo? I do. So for those of you that might be listening in the car with those young whippersnappers, Miss Cleo, and this is part of this is interesting stuff that I thought would be cool to talk about. Miss Cleo used to have late night commercials that had a 1-800 number that you could call, and she had a Jamaican accent, and she wore a turban around her head, and she would say, "Call me now," and you could get your tarot card reading, or you could get a psychic reading from Miss Cleo and her hotline. So this was a phenomenon. You would be hard pressed in the 90s to know someone that had not seen a Miss Cleo commercial or had not picked up the phone to get a psychic reading from Miss Cleo. She was roughly 6 million calls came into Miss Cleo over a 3-year period with $1 billion in telephone charges. So ladies and gentlemen, back then, that's when you picked up the phone that was attached to a cord that attached to the wall, and you dialed a 1-800 number, and it charged your phone bill, whatever, 50 cents a minute or whatever it was back then. So apparently, along the way, someone realized that Miss Cleo was not, in fact, Jamaican. Miss Cleo was from California. So that started to raise a few eyebrows. Why is Miss Cleo representing herself to be Jamaican when in fact she is from California? And why would they do this and make so much money? And then I bet you if they hadn't made all that money, it wouldn't have raised a single eyebrow. But anyway, when you start talking about billions of dollars, it really started to raise some eyebrows. So lots of lawsuits later, Miss Cleo had kind of fallen off the face of the earth, and lots of FTC violations and fines and things like that. And Miss Cleo was the one that ended up with a damaged reputation out of this. So she was the face of the operation. All these people got rich, but guess who didn't get rich in all this? Oh, that would be Miss Cleo. She was making roughly $15 an hour to have her face splattered across these campaigns. Anyway, she faded, but she was one of those 90s icons that we will all remember. And so anyway, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that I just thought this was so cool because I found this article and it was so iconic to our time in the 90s. But Miss Cleo had gotten resurrected. Her Persona was resurrected for the Grand Theft Auto video game, where they had a psychic that reminded you of Miss Cleo, so they used her voice. And then in 2014, they hired her to endorse French Toast Crunch, a popular series from the 1990s that was returning to the shelves. But unfortunately, her Miss Cleo ended up passing away in 2016 at the age of 53. Her obituary identified her as Miss Cleo and her longtime frustration with being associated with the lawsuits. Of course, she had a good sense of humor with it, and she would say that some people still think that I'm in jail when in fact a lot of that I wasn't even associated with. It was more the people that behind the business. So anyway, I just wanted to give you young whippersnappers a little view into some of our wonderful 1990s things that we had back in the day. And then, so as we start to wrap today's episode, one of the things that I mentioned last week is I'm going to tell you what I'm watching. And so this week, because I like to go down very dark paths on the various streaming channels I was on the treadmill and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to watch today? So I went to Amazon Prime and I was searching on crime, and a movie popped up called An American Crime. Excuse me. It's based on a true story. It stars Ellen Page and Catherine Keener, and it's about 10 years old, and it is set in the 1960s. Ellen Page is one of two sisters whose parents are in the carnival circuit, and so they travel a lot. So to build stability for these sisters, they ask a friend, who basically a woman they've just met, if she would take them in for $20 a week. She agrees to she actually offers to take them in for $20 a week because she's a single mother of 6. Well, what happens after this checks stop arriving from the parents is just unbelievable. Ellen Page's character, they slowly start to abuse her, and it just unravels from there. It was one of these like surprise, wow, I can't believe I happened upon this. And it was a really good movie, but it was really sad. So I recommend and it was short, it was like 90 minutes. So if you have time, watch it. And then if you're like me, you can go down the true crime rabbit hole. So I found the original story about this and I Googled it, and then I'm in the rabbit hole and I'm digging up all the facts, and the facts were actually a little bit worse than what the movie portrayed. So anyway, I highly recommend An American Crime if you like crime sort of things, especially when it's based on a true story and you can actually figure out what happened, and it will blow your mind. So it's one of these, I've never heard of it prior to today. And the cool thing about Amazon and all the others is based on me watching this, they're going to dig some other stuff out of the archives to recommend to me so I can go down even deeper rabbit holes. So, and it makes me feel like I'm a little bit twisted in terms of what I like to watch on TV, but a little bit different from last week's recommendation. But this is an actual movie, not a documentary. But anyway, so that is what we had for this week's Lifescapes. Just a friendly reminder, we will, in our very next episode, have the Facebook group that you can join. We'll have various ways that you can listen to our podcast. We will have ways that you can recommend to your friends, because that will be key. And just remember, this is our first and second that you've listened to, and we're going to work to improve. We really want to make sure that we're bringing relevant content to your ears and make sure that you are getting something out of this. And also, we're going to talk about some things that are going on in the world today that are uncomfortable, and we want to make sure we would love for you to send comments that we could even read on the air. So that is our goal, is to build an audience that's sharing their feedback and commentary that we can say, hey, when you said this, it really struck a chord with me. So anyway, that was this week's episode of Lifescapes, and we will talk to you guys next week with another 20-minute quick episode to get your party started for the day. All right, until then, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.